Welcome to Matt's Financial and Geopolitical from the Frontier. Hope the week's gone well. Let me start with some macro thoughts because momentarily Mr. Carney will be making his decision at the Bank of England. But what's worth noting is that the level of bearish bets on the pound is at a record. Have a look at this from Caroline Hyde, and tells me that, if he doesn't spring a surprise, you could see quite a sharp rally in the pound. Pound volatility is near its highest level since the Brexit vote, ahead of today's Bank of England rate cut. 100% of people think that they will cut rates. The question is, will they cut by a quarter? Will they add some QE or not? And that's what people will be looking out for. I attended the Kenya Commercial Bank Group earnings release this morning at the Hilton Hotel, Nairobi. I took this photograph of the street. Let me post that at about 7 in the morning. Nairobi, of course, is the capital and largest city here in Kenya. It's famous having the Nairobi National Park, about which there's much debate because the railway has carved a swathe through it. The city and its surrounding area also form Nairobi County. Nairobi comes from the Maasai phrase Enkare Nairobi, which translates to cool water. The phrase is also the Maasai name for the Nairobi River, which in turn lent its name to the city. Nairobi was founded in 1899 by the colonial authorities in British East Africa as a rail depot on the Uganda Railway. And let me put up a photograph of the pool at the Sarova Stanley. After I'd finished up at KCB, I'd left my car at the Stanley and I was waiting for it to be picked up, popped up, and the pool looked terribly inviting. At 11 in the morning, it's a rooftop pool. Political reflections. Russia's most advanced spy plane has deployed to Syria again. After the first tour of duty in February 2016, the Tu-214R has returned to Latakia to spy on Daesh and also on the US F-22s. The Tu-214R is the most modern Russian ISR intelligence, surveillance, reconnaissance aircraft. Equipped with sensors to perform ELINT, electronic intelligence, and CIGINT, signal intelligence missions, as well as with all-weather radar systems and electro-optical sensors that produce photo-like imagery of large parts on the ground. The special mission aircraft can fly multiple intelligence gathering missions. It can intercept and analyze signals emitted by targeted systems, radars, aircraft radios, combat vehicles, mobile phones, while collecting imagery that can be used to identify and pinpoint the enemy forces, even if these are camouflaged or hidden. The point I'm making is that they've made extraordinary strides. The Russians, from a military, cyber, 21st century warfare capacity, and they haven't been shy showing off and showboating either. It's noteworthy, and I think it would be wise in all this Russia bashing to pay attention to what they've achieved in that regard. Why voters will stay angry. This is Bloomberg. The world's middle classes are getting poorer. The share of wealth owned by the middle class declined in every part of the world on a relative basis. US workers' share of income has dropped to near the lowest since World War II. Incomes in Europe's southern crisis countries have fallen since 2009, while rising elsewhere. In Spain and Greece, unemployment amongst those under 25 is still close to 40%, despite a slight improvement in recent years. Those are sub-Saharan African numbers. US, well, they're not, but they look like it. US student debt is soaring. Parents in major Western countries increasingly worried about their children's prospects. Immigration and war are compounding the anxiety. European countries are seeing unprecedented flows of refugees seeking asylum, has little power to stop them. All this is causing politics to fragment. Last year, only 19% of Americans trusted their government just about always or most of the time, down from 54% after the 9/11 attacks. It's the same picture in Europe. As distrust of government has surged to a high of 84% in Spain. That's all helping insurgent parties storm the region's national parliaments. Political newcomers have gained far greater share in recent elections, and established parties in some cases have withered away. Asia has largely been exempt from the West's discontent, in part because incomes have risen so rapidly. Unrest can't be ruled out, especially as China's growth miracle recedes. Already workers' strikes are becoming more and more widespread. And take a look at that article, it's on Bloomberg, and there's a lot of graphics showing you the charts, and that's the perfect storm, isn't it, really? And on the 30th of June, talking about Brexit, I said, what's resonating more is an apocalyptic view of a dystopian future. And when you listen to Donald Trump's language, he's feeding into that sense. Adam Curtis, many years ago, made a documentary, The Power of Nightmares. And he said, in the past, our politicians offered us dreams of a better world. Obama, Hillary. Now they promise to protect us from nightmares. Donald Trump. The most frightening of these is the threat of an international terror network. But just as the dreams were not true, neither are these nightmares, says Adam Curtis. Civil unrest index, this is from Verisk Maplecroft. Interesting. Civil unrest is significantly more disruptive to business in France than in any other Western economy. And they're revealing a new global index released by Verisk Maplecroft rates France high risk. Deep-rooted culture of political protests and strikes has seen the country ranked 16th most risk globally. In their report, they're ranking 198 countries. According to Maplecroft, it is striking that Brazil, France, India, Mexico, and South Africa have all witnessed substantial disorder the last year, lack adequate structures to avoid grievances escalating into wholesale protests. France has an active civil society and trade unions. These tend to encourage demonstrations. Germany is ranked equal 140th with the UK and low risk. As we've seen in South Africa and Nigeria, poor economic performance, and it's going to get poorer, is also a critical bellwether for the likelihood of civil unrest. In addition, widespread political and ethnic discrimination or corruption can inflame popular discontent and trigger significant events. Corruption has been the catalyst for the biggest protests seen so far. Brazil is an example. Very good interview article by Rukmini Kalimanchi, I think is correct, and she tweets a lot about the Islamic State, and she's written in the New York Times. And she's saying the group has sent hundreds of operatives back to the European Union, with hundreds more in Turkey alone. And I think that's correct. Mr. Safo, who was recently moved out of solitary confinement at his German prison because he's no longer considered violent, agrees with that assessment. Many of them have returned, hundreds definitely. Let me put up a 3-month chart of sterling. Let's see what happens here. But I'm not convinced we're going back to 127.99, euro dollar 111.29, dollar index 95.65, dollar yen 101.37, Swissy 0.9735, the pound 132.89, the Aussie, where they had a rate cut but it's bounced, is at 0.7616, India rupee 66.955, South Korean 111.1427, the Rial 323.61, the Egyptian pound 8.88, and the Rand 13.80. Pressing on, but let's see what happens in that election. Standard Chartered surges as impairment drop shows progress. Surged in London trading as first half loan impairment charges fell by a third, signalling progress. CEO Bill Winter's plan to turn around the bank a year into his tenure. Shares were briefly halted after jumping as much as 11% after provisions for bad loans declined to $1.1 billion in the first half, below the $1.56 billion Citigroup analysts had estimated. Shares were up 6.8%. The bank said it's now taken about $2 billion of restructuring costs, 2/3 of the total it expects to spend under Winter's strategic plan. To get a very exciting return, we'll have to get out of this very uncertain regulatory and economic environment, Winter said. We know that we can make a lot of progress between now and those moments of excitement by just doing all the blocking and tackling and strategic repositioning that we've laid out. But we're still miles away from what we think is the value that our bank represents. Standard Chartered here in Kenya has also had an exceptional year when compared to the rest of the banking sector, and I wrote about that in my weekend piece. Bill Winters was here not too long ago when he cited Lamines, who heads up this East African business. He said, "You are role models for the bank, called Kenya a bright spot." And then Sunil Koshal, who's head of Africa and the Middle East, said, as markets dislocate, there is a massive opportunity, and I think he's right. Commodity markets, let's take a look at what gold is doing. Gold is at 1351.28. We bounced off those lows around 1310, you'll recall. Let's see what happens next. Oil and the dollar are marching in step again. This is Bloomberg correlation between oil and the dollar. And then WTI, plus ça change, plus c'est la même chose. WTI up more than 4%, yet just back to where it was 2 days ago. But I still think it's headed lower. And I think this time it's not going to come back. IS in Libya, Italy offers US airspace and air bases. This is the BBC. The Italian government says it will positively consider allowing US forces to launch attacks on the so-called Islamic State in Libya from Italy. Ms. Pinotti said Wednesday the government is ready to consider positively a request to use air bases and national airspace and support the operation if it is believed that it would lead to a more rapid and effective conclusion of the ongoing action. She noted the success of the fighting aimed at eliminating terroristic centers of ISIS in Libya is of fundamental importance for the security not just of the country but also of Europe and Italy. Put up a photograph of the Minister of Defense, Roberto Pinotti. Let's move on to sub-Saharan Africa. Look at this T-bill comparison, 1 year T-bill comparison, Kenya, Tanzania, Ghana, and Zambia. Zimbabwe police use batons to break up anti-government protest. Anti-riot police used batons to break up a peaceful march in Zimbabwe's capital on Wednesday. Latest public protest against Robert Mugabe's government's handling of the economy. Mugabe is 92, his mum lived to well over 100, and in power since independence from Britain in 1980, is increasingly under pressure from angry Zimbabweans. You know, he's avoided the tipping point for so long, but I think this time you've got a perfect storm. I said on the 25th of July, countries like Zimbabwe feel like they are right at the edge. And the edge was described by Hunter S. Thompson thus: there is no honest way to explain it because the only people who really know where it is are the ones who have gone over. Burundi rejected the UN police deployment after the Security Council vote, predictably. ANC may win 54% of the overall vote, its worst showing since it swept power under Nelson Mandela in 1994. This is the latest poll by Ipsos. ANC won 62% support in the last national elections. This is really all about President Zuma, disillusionment with him. South African all share up 3.95% this year. Dollar rand strengthening again. The rand is strengthening 13.80, 13.79. It's gained 12% this year, third best performer among 24 emerging market currencies monitored by Bloomberg. It's still down 40% since President Zuma took office on May 9, 2009. Egyptian EGX 30 up 17.29% this year, has just hit a one-year high. Nigerian all share down 3.33% this year. Ghana Stock Exchange down 10.19% this year. The IEBC commissioners formally agreed to a negotiated exit from office with a dignified pay deal. It's turning out to be quite expensive, but at least that sort of source of friction has been removed. The question is, will the opposition now roll on and find another target, or will they be satisfied with this? This morning I attended the KCB first half earnings release. Profit after tax rallied 13.618%. Group assets declined 1.17% to 559 billion. Loans and advances, the income was up 21.894%. Customer deposit expense was up substantially, but that's now seen a big decline. Foreign exchange trading income was down 21.741%. Loan loss provision, and there's been a lot of confusion around this, and I'll come back and explain it, but headline figure shows a decline of 20.133% to 2.07 billion from 2.59 billion. A lot of people had an issue with that, and I'll come back and explain it. Profit before tax up 14.335%, profit after tax up 13.618%. Total NPL and advances up 37.602%. The chairman said the period has seen a fantastic story of resilience and dynamism across the markets. The business benefited from drawing synergies across the group to sustain a strong momentum despite a tough operating environment across markets, mainly in Burundi, Uganda and South Sudan. South Sudan, big source of P&L, but obviously devaluation has impacted, and that was one of the key reasons why the headline revenue number was, headline assets number was down marginally because of the devaluation. But the theme that came out was the regional markets were tougher. Uganda was still slow after the election. And Burundi, of course, has had its challenges, as you know, South Sudan as well. But they made the interesting point that that they do well in these tough markets. We believe the future of the banking is in digital. We are reimagining digital financial services to complement the traditional brick and mortar model that was in yesteryears the hallmark of banking. We have continually rejigged our digital strategy to align it with the global direction of flight as far as technology is concerned. So total assets declined 1.17%. That was due to the South Sudan currency devaluation. Cost to income ratio down to 47.9% versus 48.6%. There is some confusion around the provisioning. At a group level, KCB reduced total provisions. They previously had an extreme South Sudan provision, which they were able to write back a little bit of. But at the Kenya level, provisions were increased. Therefore, given some regional challenges, I thought serving up a 14.355% profit before tax expansion was commendable. I attended the earnings release, some of my tweets from there. Profit before tax up 14%. Have a look at this image, a brief overview of the key financial ratios. Return on equity stands at 24.4%, which is, extreme in terms of global banking. The Kenya business was up 19%. The group was up 14%. Rights issue rescheduled. That's talking about the fact that they're seeing stronger cash generation. Over 6.5 million customers on KCB and PESA, with over 11 billion shillings worth of loans dispersed. Joshua, regarding Chase Bank, our job is now done, he said. KPMG, CBK and KDIC to take over. He said Kenya Commercial Bank has only 3 billion shillings equivalent lent out in South Sudan, and as he's talking about the fact that it's much more transactional than a lending business. There's been a 47% growth in channel revenue, with 78% of all transactions outside the branch. Insider lending to the board clocked 17 million shillings, which is $170,000, and therefore not significant. As I said, Kenya provisioning was up 22%, group provisioning down 20%. Nairobi all shares minus 0.28%. I've spoken about this bifurcation of the stock exchange. NSE20 is down 13.88%. By contrast, Safaricom hit another record yesterday, but it's trading lower today. It's been an outstanding and stellar run. David Yarrow, a proud elephant displaying his tusks taken in the Amboseli. And then finally a portrait of a black rhinoceros in Nairobi National Park. This photograph is by Federico Veronese. Thank you kindly for stopping by. We will be out of the office next week, and therefore I will have one more podcast tomorrow before taking a break. Once again, thank you.